Welcome to The Explainer. We're kicking things off with some major breaking news coming out of South America.
And here it is. U.S. military forces have captured Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. This all went down during a pretty dramatic raid on the capital, Caracas.
All right, let's really get into this. The top story tonight is an operation that was codenamed Southern Spear.
So this timeline really shows you just how fast everything happened. I mean, look at this. On January 3rd, U.S. forces capture President Maduro in Caracas. Just 2 days later, 2 days, he's already in a New York courtroom pleading not guilty. At the same time, back in Venezuela, a new acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, is being sworn in. And all of this is happening while the number of casualties from the operation is climbing, hitting at least 100 people by January 8th. Just an incredibly rapid sequence of events.
Now, when asked about the why behind all this, President Trump was incredibly direct. In a press conference, he didn't mince words, explicitly linking the operation to Venezuela's massive oil reserves.
And, well, the markets? They reacted exactly how you might expect. It was immediate and pretty unambiguous. You can see right here, major U.S. energy companies like Valero and Marathon saw their stocks just surge. It's clear that investors were anticipating some big new opportunities opening up in Venezuela's energy sector.
So what's happening in Venezuela is obviously a huge flashpoint. But, it's not happening in a vacuum. Let's zoom out a bit and look at some other conflicts that are really heating up around the globe.
First up, we're heading to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Over there, M23 rebels have been making some significant gains in the eastern part of the country, and it's creating a major humanitarian crisis. So the really crucial thing to understand here is just how dire the humanitarian situation is getting. With the fall of Goma, we're talking a city of 2 million people that was a major hub for aid. A critical lifeline has been severed. And this isn't just a local conflict anymore. It's pulling in other countries. We're hearing reports that 13 South African soldiers have been killed, and there's a lot of pressure building on the U.S. to step in diplomatically with Rwanda over its alleged support for these rebels.
Okay, let's switch gears and head over to Yemen. There's been a huge political shakeup there that has basically redrawn the map of who controls what in the country's south.
Yeah, this is a pretty significant twist in what's already a very complicated civil war. The main southern separatist group, known as the STC, has announced it's dissolving. Now, that's the official story, but some of their own officials are saying that announcement was made under duress, so there's some dispute there. But what's not in dispute is that government forces have used this moment to really consolidate their control over key areas, including the very strategic port city of Aden.
And of course, we turn to Ukraine, where Russia has just launched a new, deadly wave of attacks hitting civilian areas in some of the country's biggest cities.
I mean, we're talking about attacks on high-rise apartment buildings in the capital, Kyiv. And there are also reports that Russia used a new type of intermediate-range missile on the western city of Lviv. It's a clear signal that this assault on civilians and critical infrastructure is continuing and perhaps even escalating.
All right, let's bring our focus back home now, to the United States. We're shifting away from global conflicts to some major policy debates happening right now, specifically in healthcare. There are a couple of big changes that are causing a lot of uncertainty.
So first up, the CDC, that's the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, has made a really dramatic change to the recommended childhood vaccine schedule. They've cut the number of diseases the schedule protects against from 17 all the way down to 11. This means universal recommendations for things like hepatitis A and B vaccines are just gone. As you can imagine, this has sparked a ton of confusion and some pretty sharp criticism from medical groups.
And that criticism is really pointed. You have public health experts like Dr. Saul Karpin here warning that this policy could literally bring back serious preventable diseases that we all thought were, ancient history.
And the second big issue is the financial health of millions of Americans. It's basically hanging in the balance as Congress debates what to do about the expired Affordable Care Act subsidies. We're talking about over 20 million people who are now facing much higher insurance costs. Now, a 3-year extension did manage to pass the House with a bit of bipartisan support, but whether it can get through the Senate, well, that's still very much up in the air.
Okay, for our final story tonight, we're heading to South Africa's Garden Route region. A massive humanitarian and animal rescue effort is unfolding there.
Yeah, for 3 straight days, devastating wildfires have been raging. And right in the middle of it all are teams from the Mossel Bay SPCA working around the clock. And they're not just searching through ash and smoke for animal survivors, which they are, rescuing everything from tortoises to farm animals. They've also been crucial in evacuating people. They actually helped get 36 elderly residents out of a retirement home that was directly in the fire's path.
It's an incredible effort. This simple quote from a spokesperson really says it all, doesn't it? All we can do for now is look for survivors. It just perfectly captures the urgency and the heartbreak of what they're doing on the ground.
All right, that brings us to our summary. Let's do a quick rundown of today's top headlines.
So, from the huge geopolitical move of the U.S. capturing Venezuela's president, to escalating conflicts in the DRC and Yemen, then back home to those controversial changes in U.S. health policy, and finally to the urgent humanitarian crisis unfolding in South Africa, it's been a really significant day for news across the board.
And that's our explainer for now. We'll have another update for you in 24 hours. Thanks so much for watching. And hey, if you found this useful, please do like and subscribe.